Yay.
Okay, can you see we're recording?
Yes, got
So yeah, we were just of course.
it.
Um,
But like
I
with his lecture, the
yeah.
one thing I liked is that like when he started it out, he said, oh shoot, what did he say? He said something like problem behaviors, like the first issue we have with problem behaviors, or the first thing we need to do in dealing with them is cut out the word problem, which I
Mm-hmm.
really liked. Because I mean, like basically as he talks about in the entire lecture, like it's just a response to some sort of like external or internal stimuli. And the one example he gave that I really liked was like you have a headache, you take like an ibuprofen or a
Yeah.
Motrin, fix
Mm-hmm.
your headache. Like for individuals with autism, like they have some sort of behavior that they're doing to fix whatever problem that they're having. And for us, it's like your biological, like biological something, I don't remember the word. Like the biological effect is that you
Like,
have a headache. And
yeah.
like the behavior to fix that headache is taking an ibuprofen. And that can affect you socially because now you have more energy and you're more aware and you can
Mm-hmm.
contribute to conversations.
Yeah, I took the same. I was really surprised with the same example, like because before the Advil example, we talked about the kid hitting his head like repeatedly.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing that. Like, and it's like we see him hitting his head, we see that as like the problem, like the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to dig deeper and figure out why, like rather like the attention he's is like seeking from it, or like how we can like replace that. But he's doing it for a certain reason, so we have to find a replacement thing that um will make him feel that certain, what's the word?
Yeah, I'm not.
Type of intervention for like the behavior. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like the way he talked about it was interesting with like we just see like what he said, like the problem. Like we just see the behavior, but until this class, I've never understood like what happened before and after.
Yeah.
Like why
Because he
they
always said like find the why. Why is it
yeah,
happening?
the why exactly. And
And
yeah, you can talk.
there was like multiple different um like ways that they can show their behavior. The acronym that um I don't remember. I think it's something like EATS, like escape,
Oh, it's escape, tangible, social attention,
social, but I don't remember the A.
and
Attention.
sensory feedback.
Well, sensory feedback was the one he
Wait, I
used.
have this written down. One second. Because he had one diagram with severe behavior problems with
Yeah.
social
And
attention, escape, tangible, sensory. But I know which one you're talking about. You're talking
it
about
was the EATS one, yeah. And it was
attention,
escape.
tangible, escape, and sensory
Yeah. So like
is the eats.
I guess technically like the social attention, you just it's just attention instead of the social. So he had it.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
like how those are why you need to find them because depending on whether or not like they want to escape and like or in schools they call them runners.
I know. I learned that. I thought that was so kind of cracked me up for a second when I first heard it on the intercom.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, we have a runner." And I'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, I was like, wait, I'm supposed to run right now? Like,
Yeah, but then it's like there's some event that had happened in the
mm-hmm.
classroom that makes them feel like they want to escape. And so they run out of the classroom because being in that setting is overwhelming for them. Or like, what was the one he talked about with sensory, like rocking
Sensory,
back and forth?
jumping, shaking,
Yeah.
any of those. But I feel like those are the things that people, if you don't know anything about autism, like that's the one
You
thing.
may not recognize them.
Yeah, but I feel like sensory is the one thing that anyone can recognize
Oh,
for
really?
um
I feel like
oh, you don't
sensory can be so minimal that you may not recognize it. Like rocking back and forth, like
true.
if it's an extreme rocking back and forth, you know it, or if it's like fidgeting with their hands or something, or trying to think of like other ones, or like rubbing their hands in a certain way, or like snapping, like
Yeah,
different things like that. You
that's a
may
good
not you may not realize that that's like their behavior because they're having like this issue, or they have like some sort of problem that they're using this behavior to try to fix.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you have kids who are like running out of the classroom and they're like using escape, or they're like um I don't know, screaming out like words in class or banging their head against their desk, like those are more extreme, I guess, where you can see that and definitely be like, oh my gosh, that's a major issue in my classroom. Whereas, like, if a kid is rocking back and forth to deal with whatever they have going on, you're like, oh, that's kind of like they're just going to do it. It's not affecting the other students around them, me teaching,
Yeah,
which I feel like a lot of teachers kind of fall into the that's okay, they can do that. Which that is fine if that's how they need to do it, but also I feel like sensory is the one that's going to get overlooked the most in the
that's
classroom.
actually a great point because that's true. Like I've had kids that like that, and that I have never seen a teacher try to have like an intervention or try to replace. But I feel like sensory could be a really, really hard one to
Yeah.
create a whole like the whole idea of like that behavior assessment and intervention, like those slides he was talking, Powers was talking about.
Mm.
Like, I want to see it done in the classroom with like something as little as like what you said, like rocking. Like, is that sensory thing like of them rocking like really affecting?
Mhm.
Is it like, you know what I mean? Like, does it, as a teacher, like, should we not be trying to like fix that? Like, you know what I mean? That's a good point.
Yeah. But
No.
it also goes back to like when he was saying that you want to replace that behavior. Like if there's a kid who's like banging their head against their desk
Mhm.
every time, you would much rather have them rock back and forth than bang their head against the desk, because
Mhm.
banging your head against the desk is going to hurt them,
Uh-huh.
distract people around them. But if they're like rocking back and forth, it's like
But like
better
teaching that,
for
it's hard.
them. Yeah. And
Um,
it's like also hard because I'm like, well, and you too, like we were just elementary ed majors, and you're getting your master's in special ed, right?
yeah.
And I'm getting mine in literary ed. So like,
Are?
so these courses for me are like because I was wanted to get my certification in autism.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I love
So it's really interesting for me to like read all about these behaviors and read all about like how autism can affect students in the classroom, and also like how, because autism is such a wide spectrum,
yeah, it's
and
crazy.
like I could have kids in my general education class who have autism and like don't show extreme behaviors, and I still like need to be aware of those like minimal behaviors that they do
Yeah.
show to be able to like maintain like good relationships and conversation with the student and their parents
Yeah,
about like how they're doing. So it's
you had
interesting.
students, right? In your like in your internships, have you had any students in your class that are on the spectrum?
I haven't. I have had
That's actually surprising to me. Every
right,
class I've been in, there's been at least one student.
I
Um,
had this past semester a student with oppositional defiancy disorder.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's very hard to deal with.
yeah. So that was like one. And then I think I've dealt with ODD again in um our block two internship.
Uh-huh.
But in block one, there were no EC students in my class.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I when you were
I
across,
had a lot of ESLs, but no EC
yeah.
kids.
When you were across the hall from me when I was in that first grade classroom, I kind of now I understand what she was doing because she was I it must have been like some kind of like functional behavior assessment or they were trying like as a team because I saw
Mm-hmm.
this thing from his lecture about like the problem solving process and how
Yeah.
data like all you do is just collect you write every little behavior down and she
Mm-hmm.
would go to her desk and write down every little thing that he said or any behavior he did in the class that was like um for they thought it was attention seeking, but if I had more knowledge of this and more time with the kid, I don't think it's attention seeking. But um anyways, she would write down like quoting him, any little thing he said. And
Oh,
I guess that's what the data they use to then sit down with the team to figure out the plan or like it goes with the process.
yeah. That's interesting too, that you gotta like see that in action too in your internship.
I wish she talked more about like exactly what it was called. It sounded more like just on her part, like she wanted the data because she was having so much trouble getting anyone to listen to her or something. But like
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
and when you have all the data, like all this data that you have is like gonna prove some sort of behavior that the
mm,
child is doing, and then that'll help you figure out why they're doing that.
for sure,
Did you ever write down the like what happened prior to that behavior? Because I feel like that's also important to
you know.
finding the why.
I don't think she was. I think she was literally just writing. Oh, actually, no. I think one, I can remember sometime she was like, I told him to do this, and he responded like this.
Hmm.
Which, like, because I also thought, and I didn't understand, like, the three things that were on this one slide in his lecture was talking about, like, the different data that needs to be collected, like, predictive data, which, like,
Yeah.
information that predicts inappropriate. So that's what you were just saying. And then
Yeah.
formative data to provide information that informs ongoing intervention,
Hmm.
forms ongoing intervention planning. So I guess formative data is really all any of it. To
Yeah.
inform
And then there was like summative data, which comes from like
some
behavior assessments and like tests that are given to that particular student or individual.
yes, it says to provide information that summarizes treatment effects. So I guess that sounds like it's happening more once you put some type of
That's coming
intervention.
after. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I thought that was because I would just say data, but it's like it has a purpose, and
Hmm.
I liked how he told us those like certain words. Um,
Hmm.
but other things I wrote down, because everything he was saying, I was just like, wow, like he really sounds like he could help any student with like
Yeah.
any type of behavior. Like he was just saying like a lot of these things I was thinking about were easier probably to relate to an older student, like high school age. I feel like elementary is like a whole nother. Honestly, they're more like sponges. I bet you can make the most impact when they're younger, but like
I agree.
things he was saying like as a teacher we're like teaching them to like advocate for themselves, like to explain why they are doing the certain behavior, like because
Hmm.
I want this, I need this, I don't like this, like how to communicate. 'Cause especially like if their behavior, like if they're nonverbal and they can't talk, like we need to give them a way to communicate. Cause I think back to the teacher's lecture I watched this week, she was saying like behavior equals communicating,
Yeah.
which is a great statement. Like it literally, it's like I
And it's
wrote
almost like that's how all of us are too. And I feel like that's also overlooked a lot. Like everybody's behavior is like communicating how they feel in lesser ways.
for
Like
sure.
if someone is talking to you and you're mad at them and you roll your eyes, like that is a behavior you are doing that is showing like you're upset or like not agreeing with whatever they're saying on a
Yeah.
lesser scale. Or like babies when they're born and they're crying. That behavior of crying is like whether they want to be fed, whether they need their diaper changed or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
everybody uses behavior to communicate, but a lot of the time, like people who have autism, that's one of their only ways that they have to communicate, like if they are nonverbal,
Yeah.
because any behavior is them trying to communicate some sort of need or want from you.
Yeah, I one question I wrote down relates to that. I said, "Does this only relate to people on the spectrum?" Question mark. Because the thing
Yeah,
she was saying, I was like, or what she was saying, like it equals communication. I'm like, well, that's like we need to be teaching this to all of our students to understand their like to really break down like to make them understand that their behavior is coming from to explain their wants and needs and
yeah.
thoughts. Um,
And I feel like that's really prevalent for us being in elementary school,
mhm.
whereas when you're dealing with like middle school or high school age students, you're not really having those conversation as much. I also feel like by the time you're in middle school or high school, people who have autism who truly do like struggle with it, like with communicating, like or who are nonverbal, a lot of the times they will be diagnosed then. There was like because people call it like high functioning or low functioning, but I've read some articles that like almost don't like that terminology. Like
I
they
could
don't offer like another phrase. And like I don't want to say like people who struggle with autism because they're not necessarily struggling, it's just something
Mhm.
I have, but it's like people who are high functioning or low functioning was what I normally use, but now I'm not sure if like that's
Yeah,
the terminology I should use.
like, what are the
Almost like
other
when we had that article. Oh, what was it? I think it was
the
like a
person
few weeks ago.
first?
Yeah, the very first one that was
Yeah,
like,
wasn't that so interesting
mhm,
about, I never I read the opposite, like, a few years ago, how you should say person first language, and then now this
yeah,
article making me think I can say autistic, and I'm like, "Wait." Like
yeah. And so like in all of like my writings that I'm doing, like I feel like I go between both now because
same.
it's hard to know, and
Mm,
terminology is so important.
I
Um,
know. And I wrote
that I don't want to like mess up.
same. I wrote that in my response. I was like talking like because we're gonna have like elementary school age students, and it's like, do is like be it's so important to like be respectful and like call someone what they want to be called, like person first or autistic, but like at that age, how
It's
do
really
you
up to their parents.
so then I was like, is that something that I ask their parents? And it's like and it even if the kid knows, the kid's response will be based off what their parent thinks. So I just think
Mm.
that's so interesting. I was like,
I wrote in mine
I don't
like
know
for
what to
older
say.
elementary, like truly educating them about autism and having them form their own opinions. And like I related it back to like my diabetes,
Hmm.
which obviously they're not the same at all. But like I
Yeah.
have diabetes and people like will call me a diabetic instead of someone with diabetes. And like for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I am a diabetic.
So
That is
you like diabetic over a person with diabetes?
yeah.
For
And
that.
yeah, and like with that article, like there were some conversations that like I agreed with where they were like, I am autistic. I have autism. It affects my life.
Mhm.
And there's no shame in that. Like I am autistic.
Yeah.
That's it. And I'm like, yeah, like I am a diabetic. It is a part of who I am essentially as a person, even though like diabetes
Isn't
does
it?
not affect my brain at all. It just
Uh-huh.
affects my body. But like that is like a disease or a disability that I struggle with.
Hmm.
And it is a part of who I am. It affects how I view the world. It affects certain things that I do, certain things that I eat.
Yeah.
And for like that article, like they were saying people who are like adults, they are the people that are like, we want to be referred to like as like we are autistic, not people with autism, because it was saying something along the lines of like saying like individuals with autism or individuals who struggle with autism is making it seem like
A,
autism is
a bad thing.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I can see that, but I don't,
But
I'm
I'm also
trying.
like, you are a person. Like, and I understand person first
Oh,
language. Like,
I
you
know
are more than
exactly.
like just having autism. Like, you
But I think
are a person first.
it all stems from the bad connotation of autism. Like if it was never seen as a bad thing, then there would be no problem with separating it to say person with or no not not for person first. But there'd be no problem with saying autistic because that's just who they are. But people I think it stems from like the parents and the guilt and like just being scared and I feel like I think I wrote in my
Also, when the parents were younger,
yeah,
saying like, "What are you like autistic or whatever?" Like,
like the
same
R
thing.
word, yeah, everything.
It
Like
was like used as an insult, which it should
mhm.
never be. And so they are like, I don't want people to make fun of my child
Yeah.
and like use this word as an insult against them. And like even when we were reading about all the different assessments um that they have last week to like assess autism, I
Yeah.
was surprised by how different a lot of them were.
Yeah, I know. Did you look at more than 2 of them?
I looked at three.
Okay, I should have looked at more than 2. I didn't. Oh wait, no, I did 3 because we had to do 3. Never mind.
Yeah.
I
But
just looked at more because did you look at more than or were your 3 just very different?
I read all of the ones on the assessment 1, 2, and 3 page, but I
Yeah.
chose one assessment on each one of those like PDF like
Yeah.
pictures or whatever
Mhm.
to really focus on. But a lot of mine like were really focused on how to get students like IEPs in
Yeah.
school
Yeah. They're like
because that is something I feel like I will need to do a lot of in elementary school because your IEP for the most part is made when you're in elementary school and then it's adapted as you get older. And I've been to a few IEP meetings
oh, I wish. I know.
before.
I've had no experience with IEP meetings. I'm really scared to be thrown into that. Um,
If you're going for to like as an IEP meeting as a general education teacher, you're really just giving your information about what you've observed in the classroom and what you think that student may need. So, like one student that I had this past semester, her parents really were trying to push for her to have an IEP because she struggled with spelling and her handwriting was not great.
interest.
Uh, so
That's like me.
yeah, and so we were like, um, we don't feel like this student qualifies for an IEP because they haven't even had any interventions yet. Let's put
Yeah.
some interventions in place.
Mhm.
But then I had also gone to an IEP meeting for my CT, I guess. That was at our Block 2 internship because her oldest son, uh, um, I don't remember
Oh, you
why
went with
he
her?
had an IEP. But yeah, so she was going in as a parent.
That's an interesting perspective. You're
Yeah.
lucky to be on that.
So she let us sit down and see the meeting with her as a parent and her being an educator and a parent. It was really interesting to see. And so like for me, I was like, I I know a decent bit about autism in general, but it was hard for me to know a lot about how that affects a student in the educational setting and what I, as like a general education teacher, can do to support students in my classroom that have autism.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose those assessments. And there's also some, like a lot of the assessments that I chose. Let me pull up the assessments that I did.
One of mine
Um,
was used to like try to like have evidence to then get a meeting to like prolong that to like start the IEP process. I didn't pick one that was used for IEPs. Um,
well, like here's
but
one that I did that was like on a
I know
very
they're like
minor scale.
expensive. Okay, yeah.
Okay. It was the social communication questionnaire. I researched that one a whole bunch, which was interesting because that's like really an initial assessment, but it's not like really an assessment. It's like a questionnaire that they give to parents to kind of identify if their child has autism early so that they can start like some sort of like intervention or support for that child earlier. So
I did
it's like,
that one too, now that you say that.
yeah, it's for
Um,
like kids
yes
like
or no
4 years old
question.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
that was
give it
very
to
interesting.
the parent and they give it basically it's I think it was 40 questions
Yeah.
that
Yes.
the parent answers all about specific behaviors that their child exhibits, like um and like specific like milestones that the child has hit and when they hit those milestones in their life.
Yeah.
Um,
They
because
were
that was one thing
sensory
we
behavior, communication, they were all. But I feel like yes or no, quite like yes or like I feel like open-ended. I don't know. I feel like yes and no is just so like broad that um I was talking about I don't know how effective it would be. It would be good
yeah,
to get it going, like they're not using
that's
that to like make the IEP, I'm saying, but
no.
I feel like yes or no questions, like why not be able to leave some comments or like I don't know, like um
That's like
that's what
kind
I
of what I was saying too, is it's a good assessment for getting like the process of getting your child diagnosed started.
yeah, I agree.
And I feel like a lot of the times people just go to like a child psychologist and they're like, I think my child may have autism. Can you like diagnose them? And that's like the only method they go towards.
Or it's like the
Um,
school, the teacher tells you.
yeah, and I also feel like as a
The
teacher,
same
like
experience.
you can't really do that, really. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I feel like until we're in that position, we're not gonna know how to go about it. Like, I feel like as soon as we come in contact with a kid that isn't diagnosed, and we're like, wait, because now we're learning so much about autism, and I feel like I'm gonna be able to like pinpoint certain things that maybe other people in their life might not, or they're just in denial or like whatever. Um,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm gonna have to immediately go to like someone upper than me and be like, so is there anything we can do? Like, is there anything
Yeah. Like
that we,
what do I do to support this student?
yeah,
Well, it's also like I in all the readings and in everything we're doing, I always think of it for like children, like in
same.
elementary ages, and then reading the Curious Incident is
Yeah,
like a unique perspective because it's not a child.
I know. It's don't I finished it so fast. I loved it.
Wait, you read the whole book already?
Yeah, I finished it because
Oh,
I've been whenever I'm like starving and I have no tables, I just pick it up and read it. But
that's
I couldn't put it down once. How far are you into it?
I am almost done with the readings for this week. I think we have to read to 179.
Yeah.
But what I do is I have Spotify Premium, so I get the audiobook for free. So
Oh,
I just look online at like, oh, what page like is this on? And then I um
listen.
like listen to it for a little bit because the audiobook tells me a little bit about it on Spotify. Like it breaks it down into chunks So I just like go online and I'm like the spot of there's like some website that shows me like the Spotify um like timestamps to their page numbers. So sometimes it's weird
You
because I have to
know where to
stop
go.
in the middle of it.
Yeah. Well, that middle, you're probably getting at the part that I read that I couldn't stop reading. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say it. I'm afraid that you even read it, but
Because
um,
yeah, it gives me like all the chapters.
oh, awesome. His
And
I
then
love
I just
to
like
get
look up
behind
like the
yours.
page numbers for it.
It's he's like I feel like also why my mind yeah goes to kids, but it's also been going really heavily to like people like Christopher, like in the high school setting. Because I have my best friend Louisa was special ed major for the past 2 years, so she would always tell me these stories about kind of like Christopher, like and they just he you can tell how much intervention and like behavior help that he's had in the school. Like his teacher seems amazing, first off, but like
Mm.
you can tell he's so aware of his behaviors and why he acts a certain way and be like what to do to stop like for him to calm
Yeah, he
down.
has
And
like a lot of support.
yeah, the support, he just knows, he understands himself and his mind, and I just like think that's so like that's like that Christopher is like a result of like of how much like support and like help if you're given that like you really can like be functioning and
You
totally go on the
thrive.
train by yourself and travel the world like yeah
Yeah, yeah.
like, I just love it like I really liked reading that book I'm excited to read
So
more.
when you're doing the discussion post, do you just like, or have you already done them all? Have you just been doing them?
So I did this week's the other day.
Yeah.
And 179 is pretty much towards the end. Like the end, it's only like 40 more pages and nothing re I think I talked more about like, the middle part. I didn't go into I didn't like tell the ending or like anything like that. But now that you say that, wait, is there a last discussion post? Is there
Um,
one? I think there might be one more at the
I think
end.
there's one more too.
I don't know. I just couldn't stop reading it. Like I don't have a book that I love right now. So
Yeah, there's one for module 6.
okay, good. I was just happy to be like given a book that I liked. You know, I just got too excited.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I feel like a lot of the times when you're given a book to read for a class, they're never like that interesting. But
Oh,
I like that this is like an interesting book that we can use to have like really good discussions about autism in general.
yeah.
Because I feel like there's not a lot of books out there that you can read that are engaging, but that also provide like a lot of insight into different like
People's minds and
yeah, like even
yeah.
like there was one book by John Green that went into OCD,
Oh,
something turtles.
turtles. I know a few of
He
his.
just made it into a movie, but
Oh,
it was so good. And like I like didn't know that much about OCD, and reading that book and like the main character is a girl and like seeing her brain process, she's also high school, and like process all these like feelings and emotions. Like there's
yeah.
one point, it's not really a spoiler, but she like kisses the boy she has a crush on,
John Green.
and like I'm pretty sure it's by John Green. And when she kisses the boy she has a crush on, like her brain is like sending off all these warning signals, like all these germs are entering like your mouth, blah blah
Oh,
blah blah blah.
oh,
When she goes
oh,
to the
turtles all
bathroom,
the way down.
turtles all the way down. Yes, that's what it
Read
is.
that.
It's
But
really good.
told you hear it from her point of view and like that's why I wrote about the first module for like this book was just hearing his thoughts and his like fears and like wishes and like it's just and I feel like with any kind of just any kind of disorder like until you hear it from someone's point of view that like has that type of disorder like we don't know anything like we have all this data because of learning and I guess observing, but not I feel like observing only does so much. It's
Mm-hmm.
need to hear the words. I talked a lot about this book with the guy I had a Zoom with last week, and he loved it too. And I told him that I learned the most about autism in my freshman year seminar when we watched this video. I need to figure out what movie it is. It's this movie that shows from three all different ages all around the world, people with autism, and they tried to like visually show what they saw and like auditory like how what they heard,
Oh,
and it was the most
yeah.
eye-opening thing. And until then I had no idea the sensory input and like really how much what they see is differently, what they hear, what they feel. Like it just totally opened, just made me like fall like really interested in autism. And
Yeah.
I need to figure it out because I feel like everyone needs to watch it. It's like
Yeah, I would like to watch that. That sounds
through her
cool.
eyes. I ran into the professor at Earth Fair the other day, actually, and I'm waiting to see if she emails me back because I talked to her about it. I was like, I don't know if you remember me before years ago. I like
Yeah.
your class, and I learned so much from that documentary. So if I get it, I'll share it with you. But
Yeah, that
uh,
would be awesome.
I feel like I'm learning so much from this class
I
already.
am too. And I also think like doing all the assessments and like researching all the assessments
Yeah.
and like knowing with the DSM-5 like what would make someone qualify to have autism is important to know.
It is. And also interesting to hear the progression of the DSM-5 and how like
Oh yeah, how
it's
it's changed
that,
so much.
yeah, I had who knew? And I like how she's giving us that background because it shows like
Mhm.
it's only been like 50 to 70 years since we read that first crazy document that crazy article of like the accounts of the first accounts of autism and like
Like different case studies and stuff.
they were like turning their kid into these like these hospitals, and it was crazy how far the world has come in just like so short time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I also think like I don't know why, but like a lot of the times when doing a lot of the readings, like when I always think of like boys or like men.
yeah,
I'm
because
trying to like shift my point of view to think more of like girls and women too, because I feel like historically, like women have not been, they're like, what's the wording? They're like less diagnosed.
it's well, that's a good point. I feel like they're less diagnosed, but what we read is saying that it's less prevalent in girls. But is that
Yeah,
because we're doing a bad job at diagnosing them, or is
that's like what I was
genetically?
wondering because like
Good
there
question.
are a bunch like ADHD. People say it's less prevalent in girls, but recently there's new studies coming out that's saying that that's actually not true and that girls are just less likely to be diagnosed and they will live their entire lives having ADHD and never
Oh
know
God, that
because it shows differently in
yeah,
girls than it does for boys. And
mm,
all of the studies about ADHD, about what we know about it, have typically been done on boys.
yeah.
When girls have it, it's like
I
it's interesting.
wonder.
I want to do like a little bit more research
Yeah, we
about
should.
that, but I also don't know if it's just something like with genetics, and that's why.
I know because I now that I think about it, those kids, those one of those kids in each of my blocks, like that had autism, like I haven't seen a girl.
And I haven't. I've seen like girls online that talk about it, and they consider themselves like high functioning. But I've never like seen someone who is like low functioning with that's like a female with autism.
Yeah. I wonder
But
if it's the
I
same
just will have to do
thing.
more research.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the same thing with ADHD, like how they're just I wonder if like boys and girls have different types of behaviors. I doubt it, but also I kind of wonder that because I feel like
Yeah.
brains are so complicated and so
Oh,
interesting.
they are. Oh, yeah. But
Um,
I also it's just like the genetic makeup of boys and girls like is different. Like
yeah,
obviously girls have XX chromosomes and boys have
yeah,
XY. So if it's like
exactly.
something with that for autism specifically. I have no idea.
Like, no,
I just
I
like,
want to research more of the genetics. Like,
mm-hmm.
is it the this one gene? I think it's a gene. I
Yes.
I have to go to work. We have to stop.
Oh, yes.
But great discussion, girl. Let me